Take care of you. Last year, August, in Egypt, my friend of 35 years, Asa Hilliard, died while we were teaching together in Egypt. I thought the world had come to an end, but God, somebody say, but God. God will take care of you. Within the past 3 months, Reverend Barbara, gone. Anthony Hollins, gone. Donald Young, murdered. My best friend of 49 years, dying. My mentor and father in the faith, cancer throughout his body. But God, somebody say, but God. God will take care of you. I told you about 18 years ago the story that makes this point come alive for me. I'm going to leave it with you as I go to my seat on my last Sunday as your senior pastor. A little girl right here in Chicago with her father, Otis, on Father's Day, had a daddy-daughter outing out on Lake Michigan. It was one of those daddy-daughter things. You got to be a daddy or a daughter to understand what was going on. They had a lunch. They had some grooves, a CD, and they had some food, and they were out in a rowboat, just chilling, when all of a sudden the rowboat sprung a leak, and the boat went to the bottom of Lake Michigan. Now, Lake Michigan, for our visitors, is a lake that is strong enough to hold ocean liners. At some places, it's a quarter of a mile to half a mile deep. And the boat went to the bottom of, now, here was the problem. The father could swim, and his daughter could not swim. However, the father had just had an aortic valve replacement, and he was not strong enough to swim and take his daughter from about 50 yards out in Lake Michigan back into the 55th Street beach. The 55th Street beach, for our out-of-towners, is a swimming beach, a wading beach. There are no boats at 55th Street. So he said to his daughter, do you remember how I taught you how to float? She said, yes, Daddy. He said, let me see you float. She rolled over on his back. He put his hands underneath her. She said, you don't need to put your hands there. I can do it. Trust me. He moved his hands and she was floating. He said, wait for me, baby. You wait right here. Daddy's going to get help, and Daddy is coming back. And with an aortic valve replacement surgery less than 6 weeks old, he swam the 50 yards into the wading beach, but there was nobody there that could swim back out, so they got into a car, went out to 79th Street trying to get a boat. All the boats were gone. It was Father's Day. They drove from 79th Street down to Navy Pier, trying to get the Navy Coast Guard to help them. They got into a cutter and swung back out. When they swung back out to 55th Street, they couldn't find her. There was no sign of her. And then the Coast Guard cutter started making sweeps from 22nd Street on the north to 79th Street on the south, quarter of a mile out. 79th Street on the south, back to 22nd Street, half a mile out. 22nd Street back out to 79th Street, 3/4 of a mile out. And the sun was going down. So the captain said, sir, we're going to call off the search until tomorrow. He said, no, no, no. You don't call off the search on my baby. Come on, just one more time. He said, sir, look at the sun. He said, no, look at me. Read my lips. One more time for my daughter, please. The boat, a half mile and a half out into Lake Michigan, took that last swing as the sun was starting to kiss the edge of Lake Michigan. And they saw in the distance a little polka dot dress bobbing in the water. The daddy wanted to jump out of the boat and swim to his daughter, and the captain said, sir, we can get there faster in this boat than you could get there on your own. Then he turned to his men and said privately, get the CPR equipment out, because you know she's dead. By now, 3 hours have passed. There's no chance that she's still alive. Only when they got within 20 yards of her, guess what? She wasn't just floating, she was singing. Be not dismayed. Whatever time, God will take care of you. Beneath his wings of love of mine, God will take care of you. When they pulled in, they said, baby, how were you able to hold on all this time? She said it was easy. My father made a promise. He said he was coming back. And my father has never made a promise that he has not kept. You just missed it. He promised never to leave you. God will take care of you. He promised no weapon formed against you shall prosper. God will take care of you. He promised weeping may endure for a night, but joy is coming. coming in glory. Turn to your neighbor and say, God will take care of you. As the deacons take their places.